Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Before I begin, I would like to have a little prayer. So, will you please bow your heads with me? Let us pray silently together, each one of us, according to our individual beliefs. Let us thank for our food and the blessings of fellowship around us. Let us be a source of hope for those in need and contentment for those who are lonely. Let us give gratitude for our opportunities, and let us feel love and kindness, and let a well-directed yet gentle spirit always be reflected in our actions. Mother Teresa once said, "People are often unreasonable and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of ulterior motives. Be kind anyways. If you are honest, people may cheat you. Be honest anyway. If you find happiness, people may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today may be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give your best anyway. For you see, in the end, it is between you and yourself. It was never between you and them anyway." Thank you.
If you will now join us in lighting our chalice, please feel free to light your own candle or chalice at home.
Blessed is the fire that burns deep in the soul. It is the flame of the human spirit touched into being by the mystery of life. It is the fire of reason, the fire of compassion, the fire of community, the fire of justice, the fire of faith. It is the fire of love burning deep in the human heart, the divine glow in every life.
To Risk, reading 658 from Singing the Living Tradition. To laugh is to risk appearing the fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach out for another is to risk exposing one's true self. To place our ideals, our dreams before the crowd is to risk loss. To love is to risk not being loved in return. To hope is to risk despair. To try is to risk failure. To live is to risk dying.
What a time to be giving a speech on the broad topic of pessimism. But before I delve into the body of this pessimistic homily, let me tell you about the word pessimism. Merriam-Webster defines it as an inclination to emphasize adverse aspects, conditions, and possibilities, or to expect the worst possible outcome. But being pessimistic isn't always a bad thing. When you're driving, for example, you should always expect the other drivers to do stupid things. Being pessimistic also doesn't necessarily mean you think the world is going to end by the end of the year, even though it certainly looks like it's going to. Right now, our government is telling us to stay in our homes and only go outside if we need to in order to limit the spread of the new coronavirus. If you go raid the toilet paper at your local HEB, you might become infected. Then you'll more than likely spread it without even knowing you were infected, because it can take so long for symptoms to develop. There are also legions of people who think that social media is just making COVID-19 seem worse than it actually is, and who in turn ignore the warnings health officials are giving us. These people are the red shirts in the equation of life. You know, those expendable people in Star Trek who do stupid things and end up dying because of it. Only in this case, instead of dying themselves, it might be their friends or relatives who die. Many schools and school districts took a pessimistic approach to COVID-19. Before my family started isolating ourselves on March 15th, I had participated in 3 baseball tournaments, one on the weekend of the 15th and 2 in the weekends prior. we weren't able to finish the third tournament because on the first day, we were notified that a team had dropped out due to COVID-19. We were going to play the game they were supposed to play the next day. The next day, the team we were going to play in our pickup game also dropped out just 20 minutes before we were supposed to play. Later that night, the rest of the tournament was canceled. The whole time, my teammates were talking about how the pandemic wasn't as bad as the media was making it out to be, and that schools were being too cautious. Even so, at the end of that last game, instead of giving high fives with the other team and each other, we took off our caps and bumped them instead. Now, it looks like schools were right to be cautious. As of today, President Trump has extended the federal guidelines covering social distancing until April 30th, 2020. At first, the Trump administration was optimistic in hoping that the total number of confirmed cases in the US would be down to 0. Look how well that turned out. I'm recording this on March 30th. At this moment, the total number of confirmed cases is over 163,000 with 3,000 deaths. I'm sure it'll be much higher by Sunday. I'm no mathematician, but I'm fairly certain 163,000 isn't anywhere near 0. A lot of these cases were due to Americans taking the idea of social distancing with a light heart, with the optimistic approach of this'll all blow over and soon everyone will forget COVID-19 was a threat. Or, only 5 people in my county are infected. I'm not at risk of contracting COVID-19. I realize this is an extreme case, but you can see where optimism, especially blind optimism, can take you. One of the ways being pessimistic can be better than being optimistic is through a strategy called defensive pessimism. In a 2014 interview with The Atlantic, psychologist Julie Norham says, "When people are being defensively pessimistic, they set low expectations. But then they take the next step, which is to think through in concrete and vivid ways what exactly might go wrong. What we've seen in the research is if they do this in a specific, vivid way, it helps them plan to avoid the disaster. They end up performing better than if they didn't use the strategy, and it helps them direct their anxiety toward productive activity." This makes sense when you think about it, because if you think about what can go wrong beforehand, you might be able to prepare yourself for it. However, if you remain optimistic about the situation playing out perfectly, then you'll be unprepared if it does go wrong. So, even though it might not be a good idea to expect the worst all the time, there are times when it's definitely better to be pessimistic in order to be prepared for the end result. A lot of this comes down to 2 tiny conjunctions, if and when. If you live life and confront potential dangerous situations with nothing but if, when waits to teach you a nasty lesson. Thank you.
This is an excerpt from Apprentice to Hope by Julie Naras. Living in the same neighborhood as hope, with its honesty and awareness of life's harsh dimensions, is optimism, hope's half-sister. Optimism deserves respect. After all, it can provide the essential energy necessary to move forward. At times we need to take refuge in optimism. When life delivers up bad news, we go to work revising it into something we can bear. But optimism cannot sustain us, like hope can, in our darkest hours. It must be constantly propped up with cheer, for example, or denial, or little pep talks aimed at will. It cannot sustain us over the long haul. Optimism tends to minimize the tragic sense of life or foster belief that some remedy for life's ills is simple. The hoping person, on the other hand, has had experiences of fearing, doubting, or despairing, and is realistic about life and the obstacles to fulfillment. This kind of person refuses to pretend things are other than they are.
Hello everyone, my name is Ricardo and I'm a junior in high school. Everyone's situation might be a little different right now. As you can tell, we have to stay inside or only go outside when we need to. Kind of depends on everybody is taking that. But this is kind of crazy how there's three different viewpoints of the situation we are in now from when this topic was brought about months ago. And we thought about making this sort of a thing for this sort of thing. But we didn't really see this coming, obviously. It just happened to be kind of crazy how we're talking about it. But, I mean, this is a perfect example because it's so perfect to the point where you can't do that. But, Okay, so first, there are 2-3 different ways to look at this. And in my opinion, I look at things this way too. For me, I seem to find the good in things and not necessarily the bad. Because sometimes the bad can be worse for you mentally. Or worse for you down the road when you're trying to recover or find your way back to where you were. So there's 2 different ways. There's, being pessimistic and being optimistic, but it's all viewed off how you look at it. You can have those 2 different ways of thinking. You can look at it completely different than somebody else. Everybody is different. Different isn't, they have their own ways to go upon doing so. So one person may do it another way by isolating themselves because they feel like they can do better by themselves, or some people need to be around other people so that they can, use their energy to be happy. Everybody just views things differently, and today we're going to talk about being optimistic. And for me, I like viewing things this way because I don't want to be stressed or put in a situation where I am not feeling right. So, a perfect example would be with this coronavirus that just came up, and how you view it, because you could have viewed it 2 different ways. You could view it 2 different ways right now. I mean, negative or the positive. We're going to talk about the positive side of that. And there's people who say school's canceled, right? But in the end, that's the better thing that could have happened. It may not have happened as soon as it could have, but being optimistic is always thinking about the positive in things and not the negative, because the negative, that's not really the mindset you want to put yourself in. You don't really want to be in that doubt phase. You want to be in that more positive, happy phase, because it's a better phase. That's what everybody dreams about, just being happy with yourself and understanding why you picked to do what you did. So a lot of people didn't go to school, or not didn't go to school, but they stayed home, and they understood that that was the best thing that could happen. Like, they're grateful that they can, I don't know, spend time with the family or just be home and not have to be out all the time, be like at school or something. Keeping themselves safe and stuff. But yeah, it goes more than just about what's going on right now. It goes on with like life in the future when all this is over with. Always thinking about when you're in traffic, or if a cop pulls up behind you, you know, he's not going to pull me over. I'm not doing anything wrong. That's where you're going and you're thinking right. Normally when people get, you know, start thinking negative, like start thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get pulled over. He's going to take me to jail. That's when they start getting nervous, and that's when things happen. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, okay. So it's always about thinking, whenever, you know, you're working and you're like, oh, I'm not gonna make it on today's rent or this month's rent or anything like that, because there's always a way. There's always a how will I, or I will. Sorry, there's a fly. But it's like, how will I get there? What do I need to get there? It's not, what if this happens, or what if that happens? Because in your mindset of being optimistic, you want to think about, what happens when I get there? What can I use from this to get to this? So I got into a car crash. What can I use from this car crash to grow myself so it wouldn't happen again? What could I have done? Or what could I do next time? Or didn't do, say you play sports. Why are there flies? You play sports. You could, I don't know, you blow a play, or you blow a coverage, or like you let somebody score on you, or, you know, what could, next time you can fix that and change what happened, you know? Because like, you let somebody run by you and they scored because of that. Next time you can stop them from running by you. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have today on the topic optimism, because it's such limited time. Thank you.
Our hearts are free, so tell me what's wrong with the feeling. I'm a flower, you're my bee. It's much older than you and me. I'm in love, I'm alive. I am one with the stars and sky. Let's forget who we are for one night. We're not animals, baby, it's the people who lie. I want real love, baby, don't just leave me waiting. I got real love, maybe wait until you taste me. I want real love, baby, there's a world inside me. Got the preacher's music, just if for a moment our hearts are free. So tell me what's wrong with the feeling. I'm a flower, you're my bee. It's much older than you and me. I'm in love, I'm alive. I am one with the stars and sky. Let's forget who we are for a night. We're not animals, baby, it's the people who lie. I want real love, baby, oh, don't leave me waiting. I got real love, maybe wait until you taste me. I want real love, baby, there's a world inside me. Got the preacher's music, just for a minute.
Hi everyone, my name is Bryce Riggle. Many of you watching this video may have seen me around church. I'm a senior in high school. I've been coming to First YRUU San Antonio since 2014, and over the past few years I've tried to stay an active part of this community. especially within our youth group. Back in December, when I volunteered to cap off this service, I had something completely different in mind than what we've created here today. I imagined standing in front of the sanctuary, detailing my journey as a young UU, and how I've attempted to draw out and blend the strengths of optimistic and pessimistic viewpoints. Events have panned out differently, but our current situation in the world has allowed me to test out this mode of thought much more rigorously than I had expected. Adolescence, I believe, is a fairly pivotal time in a person's life. The position you land in this time can greatly hinder or help your aspirations for the future. As someone who has yet to see these things play out in my own life, I've wanted a mental framework to help me go by about my days with confidence that I'm giving myself the best chance to be the person I ultimately want to become. As related to our theme of optimism and pessimism, there are two pillars of this framework I'd like to discuss today. These are broad goals that I hold that have helped me in putting myself in the position I want to be once I graduate and move on to the next chapter of my life. The goals are to maximize the opportunities available to me and to enable self-exploration. Now, what do those entail? My first goal has been the simplest to plan out and to understand how to achieve. It's also been the most difficult. I've been privileged enough that I've never had to deal with any seemingly insurmountable obstacles toward my progression, but I've always tried to set the bar as high as possible for myself, knowing that I may have more experiences that feel like failures in service of stretching the image of what I'm capable of. Academics have been a large part of this, of course. I try to make sure that by the time I found out what I wanted to do academically after high school, I would have not only the grades, but primarily the knowledge to pursue whatever that study may be. This has meant taking as many AP and dual credit courses as I was humanly capable of, and engaging in a variety of extracurricular activities to broaden my experiences. This practice of jamming my schedule to the gills whenever possible has been a pragmatic exercise, but one made much easier because I'm a very extroverted person, and I find learning new things to be one of the most satisfying experiences in my life. Not only did the many hours sitting in the nearest Starbucks studying calculus, or the 54 Monday afternoons spent with the science bowl team just to lose at regionals, end up successfully getting me into the college of my choice, but I also love these experiences. My other goal, to enable self-exploration, was a bit more interesting to piece together for myself. One thing I've been aware of ever since middle school is that the most terrifying situation I could find myself in, as far as growing up goes, would be to reach adulthood, to go to college, and have absolutely no idea what I want to do with my life. I'm not the most organized person in the world, not by a long shot, but even if my plans fail or they change, to be confident, I always need to start with one. I figured that to come up with a plan for my life, I should do and explore as many things that pique my interest as I could. This is where being a UU fits in my story. My participation in this community through RE, M2U, and later YRUU, through watching services and attending church events, by accepting leadership roles at high school rallies and YRUU summer camps, have helped develop some of the character traits I'm the most grateful for. My compassionate nature, my open-mindedness, my proclivity for excessive self-reflection were all continuously nurtured by the UU community through its members and its ideals. If someone asked me which parts of my identity I was the most proud of, I would certainly say being a UU. I would also say that I'm proud of being a musician. If the goal of promoting self-exploration was to discover my passions and my career aspirations, growing my love of music has so far been the most successful result. I started playing guitar when I was 6, and I haven't taken any breaks aside from family vacations since then. I wouldn't even call time away from guitar taking a break, since picking up and playing one is one of the most instinctive actions I can do at this point. I became interested in music production in 7th grade and I also joined choir in 8th grade. Yet, despite these facts, I never considered a career in music. I said I wanted to be an architect because music was just a hobby and it wouldn't be a practical job anyways. While I believe I could be happy pursuing a career in architecture, in retrospect, music was always a more obvious choice given my background and the amount of time and effort I've spent developing various musical skills. To put this all together, I'd like to reveal the working title for the speech, which was Realism. To fully commit to my system of decision-making, I first needed to understand realism. People most oftenly use the phrase be realistic to minimize someone's ideas or aspirations, or to shrink them down to a state where they seem safe or feasible. My click moment was to see that when integrated into my way of thinking, the lens of realism was both a filter and an amplifier for my ideas, because the only things minimized were my biases. Being realistic is in fact what helped drive me to get into UT Austin for audio engineering, as well as to make the Texas All-State Choir. It helped me see a future that I had unintentionally obfuscated long ago, and it also helped me plan on how I could reach that place. As I said at the beginning, realism, which is what I would call this mode of thought that I have developed for myself, has been a source of strength for myself and for many others during this time of crisis. I've taken in the facts of the situation. I've accepted that for the time being, my life will be different, and I may miss important parts of my senior year for the safety of the community. And rather than stressing, I've been putting my energy towards things I can control. I think we all inherently understand the process that realism is founded upon. The cycle of observation, debate, and decision. But at some point, we may not want to look around our world anymore. Maybe we think we can ignore the nature of our reality and say that business is as usual, or, on the flip side, that there will never be business ever again. To polarize ourselves in this way inevitably leads to disappointment and a lack of self-awareness, which allows regrets to fester, distracting us from what matters. I hope you found this little chat interesting. I implore everyone to take another look at their world, because reality in its fullest appearance is far more exciting than you might think. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this week's worship service brought to you by the high school YRUU youth group. I know it's been a weird couple of weeks with in-person church being canceled and the worship being shown as a video instead. I hope you enjoyed our service this year and that you'll come back and listen to us again next year. And hopefully, it'll be in person. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you.